Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. The Carolina Panthers officially trading up to that number one overall spot. The ball is in their court. Going to be doing a 7-round mock draft for the Carolina Panthers. But first, we'll be talking about the quarterback selection with this number one overall pick. Before we get into it, though, I just want to say thank you to you guys. The Panthers fans, we've done some mock drafts with the Panthers. We've had scenarios where they trade up, not necessarily to one, but I've been banging the table for the Panthers to trade up. I feel like the last couple of years, they've been sitting back and kind of left just holding an empty bag. They make the move. They have their selection of quarterbacks, and it is a great quarterback class to select from. But again, we appreciate the support you guys have shown. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll be talking a lot of quarterbacks for the next couple of weeks leading into the NFL draft. And then let us know in the comment section. What Panthers fans, who is your quarterback of the future? Who do you want the franchise quarterback to be? Again, we love talking ball with you guys in the comment section as well. That's why we do these videos. So Dill, I'm gonna kick it off to you. You're Frank Wright. You're the GM. Where are we going with this number one overall pick here?
I'm still a Bryce Young guy, and I know the world's kind of flipped it over to CJ Stroud, and that he's obviously the huge betting favorite to go number one overall. But at the end of the day, for me, what Bryce Young does is he's a guy who elevates the talent around him. And you look at what he was playing with Alabama, which included an offensive coordinator who I don't think was on his game necessarily with Bill O'Brien. And obviously he kind of moved on and probably good for Bama, but also like the talent wasn't there. They don't have pro wide receivers right now, and
which is different from the normal narrative of Bama. Like you normally are talking about a Bama quarterback dealing with all the talent in the world at wide receiver. That was not the case for Bryce Young.
And you just see what Bryce Young was able to do with that. They were still an offense that could score a lot of points, and especially you saw the development over the course of the year and what they were able to do. I just think Bryce Young's a guy who's going to come in. He's going to make everyone around him way better. And that's kind of what you need as a number one overall pick. Like, you need to be talented, but it's not just talent, because then you maybe end up with a Carson Wentz situation where maybe you're not kind of like raising the level of everyone else on the team. And I think Bryce Young's just a guy who he's going to come in and there's just something about him. I think that
it's the it factor. And that's what I like. My biggest selling point for Bryce Young, and I don't know how to quantify, I don't really know how to describe it, but you look at the quarterbacks that are making it happen at the next level, Patrick Mahomes being kind of the best example. It's the it factor. When stuff is breaking down, that Bryce Young, Patrick Mahomes, those guys just have a sense and figure it out and are able to move the chains, are able to make some plays. That's the biggest selling point on Bryce Young. He has the arm talent. He elite processor. He takes care of the football. But my biggest selling point for Bryce Young is he's that dude. And I feel like it's a shallow kind of analysis. But when you watch him at Alabama, like those play calls from God, I'm blanking on his name right now, Bill O'Brien, were brutal. And Bryce Young is just playing backyard football out there, making it happen. And so when you're asking me, why are you going with Bryce Young number one overall? For me, it's just he has that it factor that these other quarterbacks, maybe minus CJ Stroud, just simply don't have. Now, moving to the quarterback that most people, the word on the street, and we've been betting enough that Vegas knows. Vegas knows something within that Panthers organization that they like CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud's also that guy. And in terms of pure arm talent and accuracy, I think CJ Stroud is probably the best in the class. So you saw him throw at the combine, throwing with wide receivers he's never thrown to before, hitting them in stride, right where that football needs to be. That's probably CJ Stroud's best selling point here.
Yeah, and that is the thing. CJ Stroud is incredible. And this to me is not like Bryce Young so far away and CJ Stroud behind him. Like, I have these guys razor tight. I think CJ Stroud is so good. What you talk about, just the passing acumen. He puts touch on the ball, so he needs to put touch on it. He can throw it on a rope when he needs to. He hits guys in stride. He operates that quarterback position at an incredibly high level. And even when you saw things break down a little bit for him against Georgia, you saw him being able to pick his team up and kind of carry them.
That was the biggest. I haven't seen a game improve a player's draft stock, a singular game improve a player's draft stock as much as that Georgia game did for CJ Stroud. Because what was the biggest knock for CJ Stroud is he's had everything given to him, right? He has 2 first-round tackles. He has a phenomenal offensive line. Ryan Day calling the plays is beautiful. And then he's been working with Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Spin the Jig, but Marvin Harrison Jr. He has NFL wide receivers that he's working with at Ohio State. And so everything looks so easy. But then the biggest question mark was, can he create when stuff breaks down? Can he be that good football player? Can he be the best football player on the field when it's not always easy? Georgia, that game, when stuff broke down, CJ Stroud showed the ability to manipulate the pocket, to extend plays when he needed to, and be that playmaker that we've seen Bryce Young do for 2 years. So when you're asking me about CJ Stroud, I think he'd be a great fit for Carolina as well. But what's most important for CJ Stroud is just the dead eye accuracy. Like, he just gets it. You noted it best. Like, hits players in strides, gives them the ability to create after the catch. And either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, two of the more bona fide prospects that me and you have seen for the last couple of years at that quarterback spot, I wouldn't argue either one of those two. Now
And
let's
just
get
to
in.
touch on the height, like that's probably the main thing people are quibbling about with Bryce Young, height and size. And
Yeah.
he played at Bama for 2 years. I don't think he was really ever injured.
One game. He missed
a
one
little
game.
bit of time this year, but he's relatively or incredibly healthy, I would say. And there's some way that he plays the position where he just kind of feels his way through the pocket and get to the spot he needs to get to get the ball to the wideouts. It's not like you saw balls getting batted down. It's not like you saw throwing interceptions because you can't see the field. Like, you didn't notice any of that because he, again, and what he said, I've been this size.
Yeah, that's the crazy part is like Bryce Young has been that size since he's been playing high school football. Like, he knows how to play the quarterback position with the height and size that he has. And you made a great point. I think most of the question marks are in terms of durability. Like, can he take sacks and be able to get back up and stay healthy? Bryce Young never got hit in the pocket. Like, he just, like, going back to that it factor, going back to that feel for the position, phenomenal job manipulating the pocket, phenomenal job extending plays. This dude is an elite athlete, like, in terms of short area quicks and making people miss in the pocket. Very, very good. And then you go look at a guy like Will Levis. Yeah, Will Levis is 6'3", 230 pounds. He gets crushed in the pocket. Like, this dude has no feel in the pocket. So Bryce Young has been this size his whole life, and he's learned how to play the game keeping in mind his size and knowing I can't be taking the hits that a guy like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis can take. Now, let's talk about the two other guys, more the lottery tickets, if you will. And this is my big argument against, and I get what you see in Anthony Richardson, like one of the freakiest dudes we've seen as a quarterback since Cam Newton. Yeah, it's him and Cam Newton. Oh, yeah. My biggest problem is we've been calling him the lottery ticket of this draft for so long. You buy lottery tickets that are worth $5. You don't mortgage your house and go buy a lottery ticket. That's what the Panthers are kind of doing. I mean, the amount of capital they give up DJ Moore as well. Like, are you going to use all that capital to trade up and take a guy in Anthony Richardson that is just so raw and such an incomplete prospect as it stands today?
And that is the thing. It's not like we're looking at guys at the top of this class who are in their own right incomplete. Like, you got two real studs. And then when you get into Richardson and Levis, like you look at Richardson, his highs are so good. And I think I don't think it's like, again, I think he might be a really good quarterback. But again, when you're like thinking the draft, you got to play the percentages and the odds. And there is definitely a chance that he doesn't totally pan out like these top two, or at the same rate maybe that these top two guys you kind of expect will. But he's a guy who, again, I would take him in the first round. I think he is that type of player. But given what you said about how the Panthers essentially acquired this pick, I think you go with the
blue chips.
You sit at 9 to take Anthony Richardson. That would make a lot of sense, actually. But
and you see like the Josh Allen comps, like the Bills like waited, sat there, and Josh Allen kind of fell into their lap, and that's when you pull the trigger. I don't think you mortgage your house to go up and get a guy like Anthony Richardson. And some of the stuff you see on film, it just head scratches. And you know that you watch the Utah game and like, this dude is the best player on the field. And then there's points where it's like 5-yard out, air mails it, just missing throws that you need to make on Sunday. And it's to the point where it's like, is that going to get better? Like, can we fix that? Maybe you can, but maybe you also can't. And Will Levis, very similar argument. Now, I'm not as down on Will Levis in terms of some other people, but I certainly don't think he's the guy when you have a guy like CJ Stroud and when you have a guy like Bryce Young. I don't think Will Levis is the dude you're taking here at number 1 overall because, again, the same concerns. A lot of inconsistency. He's a significantly older prospect. And when you watch his film, like the processing that we talk about Bryce Young and CJ Stroud that they have, Will Levis doesn't really seem to have that.
Yeah, ball doesn't come out nearly as quickly. The presence in the pocket, like
It's bad.
his kind of instinct is to just move backwards and then throw off his
Yes.
back foot.
And he is a howitzer, so it works sometimes, but it's like that
Yeah,
ain't
no,
sustainable.
that's again, it's like you want have the feel that CJ Stroud and Bryce Young do when they get out of the pocket, they start moving forward and try to get the ball going down the field. But I'm kind of with you. I think Levis, again, these two guys, Richardson and Levis, to me are probably first round picks, but they're not. They're probably like around the 10 and lower for
Yeah,
me.
they're not first overall picks when Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are on the board. Like Will Levis might have gone number 1 overall last year had he come out because there's no other quarterback. When you have a guy like CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, you ain't taking Will Levis number 1 overall. So let's start this draft up. We'll go with CJ Stroud because that's what we're hearing the Carolina Panthers are going to be doing. We'll kind of address as news changes, but you can't miss. I'm more of a Bryce Young guy, but you really can't mess with either
They're
of these
both
prospects.
so good. I mean, we're not like you're splitting hairs picking.
You really are. So now the Panthers do. What your goal is now is you got to build around CJ Stroud, right? And at 39, like you got to get another pass catcher in here. And we talked about it before we got on. Like Josh Downs would be a perfect fit. You look at the chemistry that JSN and CJ Stroud had at Ohio State from that slot. CJ Stroud's a guy that likes to get the ball out quickly to his players in stride so they can work after the catch. There's not many receivers better at creating separation early in their route tree and then working after the catch than Josh Downs. I think that would be a phenomenal pairing for the two.
And especially you saw what Stroud did with JSN at Ohio State. I mean, he used him so much, and I quite frankly think Josh Downs has a lot of those characteristics.
Yes.
A really savvy wide receiver, makes plays after the catch. Now, to me, this pick will be a little dependent on which quarterback you take because I do think if like a guy like Jalen Hyatt's on the board and you have Bryce Young going, I think you maybe lean like a Jalen Hyatt type player because you look at what Bryce Young did with Jamison Williams at Alabama in 21. I mean, he is a really, really good deep ball thrower in my mind. And obviously, we've talked about Jalen Hyatt is a premier deep ball player. Now, I think Stroud isn't quite that guy. That's not CJ Stroud's game, is hit those deep balls. Like CJ Stroud is just nails intermediate, short, and deep, but maybe not those 50-yard bombs that Bryce Young was kind of uncorking on teams. But I like this pick. If you go with CJ Stroud, I think Dell, I think Josh Downs, I think both those two guys make a lot of sense. They do a lot of what JSN did.
I would love the Bryce Young, Nathaniel Dell picks. Just like two guys who are just like you get them on a scale and they weigh like less than your offensive tackle. But I mean, that would just be a fun one.
I'm a huge Tank Dell guy.
Just the small guys. All right, Tank Dell's still on the board. 93 overall. I think now the Carolina Panthers are going best available. So I think 39, you want to use that pick to build around Stroud. But I think if you're Carolina, you also realize you're not winning a Super Bowl this year. It's about the long game. You want to hit on these guys. You want to get guys on rookie deals who are going to be playing for you for 4 years. So I think it turns into a more best player available. And if you were to pass on a wide receiver at 39, if you really like the different prospect, Michael Wilson, A.T. Perry, those are some Tank Dell or some wide receivers that I would love at 93. But since we went Josh Downs, I want to take a look at this tight end class just because I love how loaded it is. I'm not using a Tucker Kraft pick here. Dill, I would argue Carl Brooks would be a phenomenal pick here.
He's really good. That's a guy like, again, a really versatile defender and move him around everywhere on the line. And I think he's going to be really productive.
Man, him and Brown would be so. And this is why we're going to go with Carl Brooks. And what I want to talk about him is he's such a weird prospect because he's 6'4", 300 pounds. He lined up like in the 5-tech, like outside tackles for most of his snaps. And that was just being a product of I'm the best player on this defense. I'm going to be put in a spot where I can impact the game as much as I can. 49 quarterback hurries, 23.8% pass rush rate. Like this dude's burst and bend for an interior defensive lineman is next level. I also think he can hold up in the run game. You're getting a guy where you pair him and Derek Brown up. Yeah, and that's looking like one of the more scary interior defensive line positions and position groups in the whole NFL.
Yeah, no, I like the Carl Brooks pick.
Carl Brooks is a lock. I because like you see him, and then you have the questions like can he play against NFL talent? He goes to the Senior Bowl. He dominates there as well. Like, he's got heavy hands. And then I see Hodges Tomlinson. Like, we're just like scooping up best player available. I don't think Michael Wilson would be a bad take here either, or Moro Ojomo.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got some guys. I think KJ Henry is really good. I think Colby Wooden. If you don't take Carl Brooks in the other round, I think Colby Wooden is like a junior version maybe of Carl Brooks, obviously a little bit smaller. But on the other hand, a guy like Colby Wooden dominated in the SEC, where obviously Carl Brooks is playing at Bowling Green.
Man, at one point, do we just have to get Hodges Tomlinson? Like, I know it's not the biggest need. He's probably going to be playing nickel, but you look at what he did. Like, when he was targeted, like 34.6% completion percentage at 42.5 passer rating. He gets his hands on a lot of footballs. He intercepts a lot of footballs. This guy, I know he's a little small, and you're a little concerned about the size, but he plays with his hair on fire. He's probably the best player on this board here.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, and I think when you're looking at corner, you don't see a ton of guys you really want to roll with beyond him at this point.
And he's a guy, like, you look, like, he played on the outside pretty much consistently at TCU, and it never was a problem. And there are some good wide receivers in the Big 12, and he was always absolutely nails for a while at TCU. So, like, you have concerns about him being able to play on the outside in the NFL, but this dude, like, at some point, you just got to trust the film. And even if he doesn't work on the outside, he's going to be nails as a nickel. And then I think you're addressing the running back position here, because it's like, you're not sure if Foreman's coming back. Like, Chuba Hubbard's like really the only guy in the backfield. It's between two guys, Dwayne McBride, Eric Gray. Dale, if it's up to you, who are we taking here?
For me, it's probably Dwayne McBride, just because I think you want your bell cow pure running back. And to me, Dwayne McBride's as good as anyone, just pure running game. I know he doesn't catch the football out of the backfield, but he had like 5 catches in his whole career at
5.
And that's like obviously a little concerning, but if you want a guy you can just hand the ball to 20 times a game, he's not going to take negative plays. He's really hard to tackle, runs incredibly hard. He's kind of my guy for that. And again, I think Hubbard's a pretty good wideout, or not wideout, but more of a dynamic running back. Maybe not a guy you want to be your 20 carries a game in between the tackles kind of guy, but for me, I think I'd go Dwayne McBride, and I love Eric Gray, but I just think him and Hubbard are a little too similar in a sense. So
you can get a pass catching third down back in free agency. And I'm not saying Dwayne McBride is going to be Nick Chubb, but like, you look at his numbers are absolutely silly from UAB, especially the last 2 years. Like, even when he didn't play much in 2022, 9.3 yards per carry. Then when he started to play a lot, you look at his 2022 year, 7.3 yards per carry on 233 attempts. When you watch his film, it's like it's like he's playing high school ball. And I get it's a lower level conference. Like, people were lucky just to push him out of bounds. Like, this dude was not getting tackled very often. In terms of a pure ball carrier, I think Dwayne McBride's a guy you can come in and he can be a guy that touches the ball 15 to 20 times at that running back spot as a rookie. He's no Christian McCaffrey for you Carolina Panthers fans, but man, is he good. 146, you're still going best available. Moro Ojomo, like, if we didn't get Carl Brooks, Moro Ojomo would be such a lock here.
It's crazy that him and KJ Henry is still on the board, but
then do we go KJ Henry? I mean, like, Gross Matos hasn't been that dude, and KJ Henry, former top 10 player nationally.
He is good.
KJ Henry's, and he's really refined. He's a little bit of an older prospect, but like 34 pressures, like, this dude has elite pass rushing moves, like a very deep tool bag of how he can win and get to the quarterback.
And he's obviously not like the Brian Burns flexible on the edge and smooth edge rusher, but what he does is he uses his hands really well, kind of what you were saying, and he's strong, he's long, he pushed tackles around. I think he actually complements him pretty good, because you can line him up on the he'll be probably a very tough guy in the run game. That's just like what he does, and I think he makes some sense with Burns.
All right, I was all ready to pull the trigger on KJ Henry, and then I see Bryce Ford Wheaton here, 6'3", 225, like, built big, and you watch him, you think he wins with a lot of physicality. He's not necessarily the best athlete, but he wins with physicality at the catch point. And then he goes to the combine, 4.38 40. A 40-inch vertical. Like, this dude apparently is an absolute freak athlete as well. We kind of got our slot guy with Josh Downs earlier. If you want a guy that can unlock kind of the deeper portion of this field, Bryce Ford Wheaton, kind of a sleeper pick at 146 would also make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like it. Like, you lost DJ Moore, you got to start retooling that wideout group. I'm with it.
But then I go against what I want with kid.
You
I
got
want to
two
build
horses on the board. That's
like what did I say when we started this draft? Is after 39, you're just getting good players. I'm a little conflicted here. Like, you want to get another weapon for CJ Stroud, who I think could really be good, or you getting
Henry? They're really good
they're
players.
pretty damn good players. Build around your quarterback, Dylan. And it's a more fun pick. I was gonna say funner, more fun pick.
Move the ball. You gotta score some points for your Carolina.
And you want to build around, so you want to give, like, drafting Josh Downs isn't gonna fix this weapon, like this wide receiver room. Like, it needs some serious work. I mean, Shi Smith out of South Carolina is you have a bunch of young wide receivers that haven't really proven anything. It was DJ Moore bust. Harris Marshall we liked, but hasn't been extremely productive. You got to figure out some weapons for CJ Stroud. Again, he's going to put the ball on people if they get open. You need wide receivers to get open. I think Bryce Ford Wheaton and Josh Downs are two guys that can really help, and they kind of complement each other really well. Bryce Ford Wheaton, though, my jaw was on the ground when we saw that Bryce Ford Wheaton pick. I do hate passing on KJ Henry, one of my favorite players in this draft, but Bryce Ford Wheaton, kind of that guy. Wow, PFF loves this. I almost think it's bad when I get that.
They hate the Ford Wheaton, though.
Yeah, because they're I don't know, they're idiots.
They're not tape guys.
They're not. Well, Bryce Ford Wheaton's a little less of a tape guy, more of like, I just couldn't believe how well he tested. Sometimes I question when I get really, really good PFF grades, but we kind of did. Like, you're gonna get a good grade on PFF when you go best player available. And I mean, CJ Stroud's an A+ pick. I think Bryce Young would be an A+ pick. Josh Downs, I think, is a really good pick as well, especially in terms of how he fits with CJ Stroud. Carl Brooks, Trey Hodges-Tomlinson, just two guys who, like, when we said we're getting best player on the board, like, those two guys are both. Carl Brooks is going to be a top 50 prospect on my board. Hodges-Tomlinson, probably top 75 dude. Dwayne McBride, a running back that we both really like. I know you like him a lot. And then that's a my guy pick. Bryce Ford Wheaton, a my guy pick at 146 to round it out. A pretty good haul for Carolina. And again, you're looking to build for the future. Again, appreciate you guys for checking us out. Please let us know in the comment section this quarterback debate. It's going to be really interesting. We'll be getting in the comments with you guys as well. We appreciate the support you guys have shown. And if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. That helps the boys out a lot. And we'll talk to you later.